All right, so this is part two, and we had to stop for part one. There was a lot of energies coming on. There was a lot of blocking on speaking, and it really amped up and ramped up a little bit in here. So basically, what you need to know is that when that happens, you can't understand how fast and hard it comes in. And so when it happens like that, you have to settle down. So now that we've had that break, they're going to let us talk a little bit more. Now, when it came back to the book, you couldn't understand what was true and what was not about that book. And when that book came in, you can't do a lot out. So when you do a lot out, that means you're doing do, and they didn't really understand what do was back then. It was you come and you give a gift, and then we settle it down. So when you look at the young gentleman um, and doing everything good, you can't understand how fast it's coming through. And that is the kind of language that they would talk. It was a type of gaslighting that we would know it as today. So the same cards keep coming up. It was just bad intuition, bad motives, bad psychic, bad everything. I'm right, you're wrong. I'm the one in control. And that is where that energy came through with the Queen of Pentacles, that type of sitting tall and pretty and sound. So we're going to look at the Literary Witches Oracle, and you can't understand it all what it was. So using those windows of opportunity, you have to understand a lot of things. And I keep hearing you have to understand, you have to understand, you have to understand. And there was nothing wrong with their mind that they're showing me. They were a clear, sound mind. There was no problems whatsoever. But then something came through after the incident with illness come through, like nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, also issues with like a type of hand, foot, and mouth. They're just showing me the sores and the rashes. If something came through in November, and I see a chest in a box that coincided with the whale and the ship that had washed ashore with the books. Some sort of solidifier that they're showing me with the sand, with the beach, which is kind of like out towards Cape Cod. And they're showing me the port at Salem, but I also see kind of the river again that came through. They're trying to show me where that solidifier was, where it was almost an active war. I do see a cast iron pot. I do see one stone. I do see something of that nature. I see a tick, like what we see, like the ticks. I see like a connect, and then they said you'll get ticks. So then it was within the month, they started getting facial ticks. They started getting like a type of freeze. They started getting almost like an echolalia type of feeling. And mind you, I'm just translating what I'm hearing in mediumship and intuitively also. As a psychic, I see healers on the outside, at the outskirts of the township, where as soon as you got ill, you had to go and you had to go get checked out. And it was 2 weeks to months, depending on where they lived. Now they're showing me in a glimpse that they're showing me like a ghastly horse, a ghostly horse. It was a white horse. It was a significance of a gelding. It's very lewd. It's very disgusting. And that's when it started getting really grotesque about how to get it done to make sure that they were known to get into control. And then they show me the book on how they spelt known, and it's not to really be known too much, but it's something that has to do significant with the lantern. And they're showing me something about Paul Revere and significance of his lantern. It was something of a type of young nostalgia, something with that happens in childhood. And it's a type of like a, a type of sting, like a type of bullying that's not considered bullying, that is gross, but not gross of 2024 at all. It usually starts in like the family. This is almost like a little bit of a background on how these individuals who were harming those in Salem and around in Massachusetts, uh, that they had to really look into everything. And this is just, they said, take this card at face value. You just had to just see it and then you would know it. There was something that is like a type of hidden growth, and they're showing me about the heart attack. It is almost like a fungal and almost like a cancer, but not. It is something that takes sprout and wing, and it has to do with the body. And I do see the lungs, and I do see the lower lobes of the lungs, but I do see the diaphragm almost. And that is where a lot of the rebellion and the rise up would start, because it had happened. And it's something that is so connected to the soul, the mind, body, and soul, on how someone functions, that you had to stay completely devoted to a routine to keep safe. That mastery and strength was really hard when something of a book came through in Eastern Europe that they're showing me, that had to do with like a decree with animals. And then I do see the puppets, like they talked about the puppets, if you've ever been there on a tour in Salem, and the eaves, but that was found unknown, as they say in mediumship, found unknown. This was something of like a blossom of something that would rise up to justice later, of finding puppets in the eve. And this is where they're saying that if you do continue and you continue to look into it, you have to pace yourself. This is something that you have to just do in your own time if you're interested historically. You have to literally take the potion, take the drink, take the elixir. Um, they're showing me something like a curse cough, and it's a lingering cough, and it's very dry, and it's and there has nothing to do with it, nothing to do with it, and there's no cause for it whatsoever. So what ends up happening is that when it's usually done for fun, and it's created in this like fun place, like it said, for fantasy, and it is a type of trickery. And it's something that's usually like they use water as a source of energy. And so if someone is really good at doing something, they're going to know that water season, pentacle season, fire season, to like wind season, air season, you can't mix a lot of things. So that is where you have to know what you're doing when you're dabbling or you're experimenting or you're learning. Uh, as far as finding the identity, and I know that's kind of a harsh card, but literally, it was like a wolf that just comes in and just does something you can't understand, that causes this type of back to fate instead of that mix of the destiny and the fate in a written. So when it went down to actual schooling, it was actually mediumship. They learned a lot through mediumship on what to do. It was really hard to get documentation, so their book was a stone, the look of a stone. It wasn't a granite, it was like a very fair amethyst. And historically, amethyst really is like a stone that helps with growth. The actual boiling point and the exploding point was literally the horse, the gelding, and it was also how a child was abused, um, an unfairness as regard to a bird that was there. That is where that glove really comes in, and you can't touch anything at all. And they even had to say that too. The community was so absurd over everything at that point and couldn't speak that overnight, something happened within the houses. It was a mystery, absolute mystery. The power came in so quickly and then it went normal. They would blink and like normal. So when you looked at what they were eating, it was nothing out of the ordinary. But when resources were scarce, and that is the type of control still. And that was, they said 5 years in, it would almost be an illusion on how that 5 years was. The loss was great. I see within 16 years, there was 34 people. And the animals, there was almost no more animals. There was no animals left by the time they had actually gotten to the individuals who were causing this. Um, they want to talk about forensics, and I'm kind of pushing back a little bit. I don't want to talk about forensics as far as this goes. And uh, something about hair. Like I feel like they were a little bit advanced in their time. They were actually like studying bones and hair. If it like it, how this could do. Um, I see like a trichomania, like they're eating hair. They're eating like a type of pica. Like you just couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. And how did you know that was in my head? How they got people into solitude was to make them like do a play out and act out in their house. And they show me how they go like that, like over and over and over again. And then they just absolute dignity control. So the story really ends into where they would call the future, and then an uptick would happen. So it became like a tit for tat. The energy of this is still, it was the lore, and that has to tie in with the child and also the bird that they had done something with. And it really is it feeling like a play on words, but it was not a play on words. There was not even a tie-in. It was something that was coincidental. So something that's coincidental usually is something that was written and you just don't know how long ago it was written. I do see that was kind of the mess up at that point because they don't remember who wrote about the child and the bird. I'm gonna go to the star seed oracle. All right, so when they would actually be kind of like turned on in their abilities, it was almost like they used like a form of fire, like a cook, a burn, a crystal, a stone, and they had to pace themselves. This is what one woman is saying. She's about 45 years old, but really she was 16 when she passed away. So there was a lot of boundaries that were coming through. They had to carry the load. They had to be really hard in their energy within and then be soft on the outside. These were the ones that were mandated to stay at home. They had to integrate. They had to do a lot of things. So it basically was like an all in all crime, anything and everything and something to nothing happening all of a sudden, and they had no control over it. So when they did talk to the ancestors, and they would say that is now mediumship, um, there was something of a phenomena of something of that was rare gifting. There was something they're showing me like the town lines of like a type of codependency happening, and that they said they there's something within you that knows everything, and it was, I know nothing. I know nothing. There's just nothing to do. You had to wait because things were going on. Things were being woven. It's still not solid. It's still not everything. That is where like a lot of the birthing of ideas came from. And you had to be like extreme. So you had to be so set in your routine, you couldn't do anything. And basically, that was their type of training. That energy really was just sit there and hold your gaze. Just sit there and hold your gaze. I see like um an unwillingness, a non-consented type of schooling that these people did not want to do at all. So we're gonna go to the Akashic Tarot and we're gonna see exactly what happened. How did we get to the point where they were weak? And let's talk more about the curse of the sheriff. All right, so we have the King of Roses, and that was a really hard energy, even when trying to stare, which is a type of scrying. They're showing me the flowers, the gardens. Uh, I do see like calendula. I do see mums. I do see a type of posy. I do see them eating it. I do see like an accidental burning of a record. And they were saying ill message, and they would do like a run around and do a gather. but they didn't know it was always a gatherer. I do see a form of mugwort, which is they would say that was ill willow, but it really is not. And it was trying to like reverse everything. This has actually been really hard to get what was really going on with that curse with the sheriff. It would not flow through whatsoever to where it would stop the continuance on. That's what ad summons. It's a continuance on. It truly was a chess game of watching the next move. And that is when they really got into like personality conflict, like the views of the ego, of the subconscious, because that's when they started doing like check-ins in a way that's like highly inappropriate in 2024. Uh, I do see that they were physicians, but not physicians, but it was appropriate at that time. I do see like a depletion of mineral and elements out of them. I do see their teeth that like quickly, like they had a lot of issues with their teeth. I do see a lot of GI upset when it happened. I do see that it was something that was written to happen. When you go back to Paul Revere and you see the North Church and you see the Freedom Trail, it had to do with wrought iron. That coming over to start again was almost like a feeling of continuance on from Plymouth and Salem. And when you see Boston Harbor, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. And that's all I keep hearing. I do see significant landmarks in area of Boston connecting down through to where we're talking about. But really, I see more on like the western side. There was something with the rock formation that had a lot of issues when it came to miscarriages. And it did not have to do with what we know as a miscarriage today. It is something that they weren't skilled at, but it was something brand new and it was something written. And I see it was written more in the Africa area, more in the Africa area. This is something that you had to sit and meditate on if it was right for you or not to get the job done. So when you sit and you actually reflect on it, you have to test it. Like they couldn't even test it. They just had to throw it out there. And that is when a lot of documents started to get burned. And that start was in the 1600s of Salem, but I'm seeing something prior to Bunker Hill that had to do with a lot of documentation destruction. So for this part two, we are going to just look at the Pleiadian Oracle. And then for part three, we will look at the stones and the crystals and see what else we can draw out. So I do see on that split is a fifth dimensional access. It has to do with something with alignment with the universe. I do see a form of forgiveness. So Maya, it has to do with earth. So I do see a lot of earth magic. I see a lot of earth energy. I see a lot of earth movement. of someone who could do a lot of energy work. So when they couldn't use their gifts, they used energy and learned how to read energy and how to do alignment. And that is where a lot of a talk of the study of how they looked at the constellations, they looked at the moon, they looked at the movement of the stars, they looked at the northern lights, and they learned everything that they needed to know. Pascal's tomb is not exactly what everyone thinks at a verbatim. It means that it tomb was something that was like within, and it was a play on words, but not to someone who was it was it. Uh these were people who actually could have like a lot of visions. And so when they would see things, it was almost mathematical. These are someone who could actually like hear very well, high intuitive hearing. It's almost like a type of light language that we know it as today. Some of it was called like speaking in tongues, but really it was like a type of gibberish. It was a type of pig Latin. It was a type of very fast talking, almost like a slang language, and they would speak it really fast, and they learned it really quick from the family. Usually that as far as lightning boys that stands, it was something that came out of the Middle East that they had gathered through, and that is what made the timeline jump. But when it happens to be a timeline jump, when something has been solidified to happen throughout history, it causes such a disrupt, it causes a delay in everything else. So that is where you literally have to like forgive. You have to forgive a lot. And that is where they end up having like a lot of issues with illnesses that they couldn't control, like disease and famine. Now they allude again to the energy work, and they had to learn the differences of the energy. So they're showing that the ones from the Revolutionary War were really good with energy work, but these young ladies that lived on the outskirts, they were really good, but they could not talk about their energy work. They would literally dress as men. They're showing me like they were wearing pants and a shirt, and as soon as someone arrived, they knew exactly how to clear it out as fast as they could. Literally use your imagination. Literally use your imagination. Is something that they would have a dream and they would do it and it would work, and that their vibration was so high but undetectable at times that you can actually like pick up on a lot of things. And that is where animals come in, and that is where a lot of like a connection to the earth that these individuals had that made a huge difference on trying to get what they needed. So with that being said, that's where they want me to take another break, and then with part 3 we'll look through the crystals and the stones on what else they need to do. Talk to you all soon.